As the regular season winds down, the Dallas Stars kick off an important Pacific Division road trip tonight in Edmonton against an Oilers squad without Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. We'll play Shooting Star plus a stay-to-play investigation involving 3 former Dallas Stars executives. That's next.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Just 12 games remain in the regular season for the Dallas Stars. We've hit the final stretch as Dallas kicks off a Northwest road trip here tonight against Edmonton without their 2 superstars, no Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. We'll preview tonight's game. I also want to look ahead at the final 12 games. I think the Stars could make a run for the Central Division title. We'll play Shooting Star, and I also want to end on a stay-to-play investigation involving 3 former Dallas Stars executives. I teased this yesterday, and it's really interesting, and I have some thoughts I want to share, and we'll close on that today as we kick off a Wednesday edition of Locked On Stars. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, never miss an episode. Thank you to all you everydayers out there joining me each and every day. So let's preview tonight's contest against Edmonton that loses some of its luster because there is no Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. They were injured about a week ago in a game against Edmonton. Both of them fell, and McDavid and Draisaitl are not expected to be back this week. Head coach Chris Knobloch said after practice Monday that McDavid and Draisaitl won't be available for any of the team's 3 games this week. So it certainly makes Dallas's life a bit easier tonight without McDavid and Draisaitl. Draisaitl with 101 points this season. He leads the NHL with 49 goals, 34 of them at even strength. Connor McDavid has 90 points as well. And we all know what McDavid and Draisaitl can do together. So they're without their 2 superstars. They did find a way to beat Seattle over the weekend 5-4 without those 2. They're 41, 24, and 5, second in the Pacific Division. And I just hope the Stars have a much better effort in the first 40 minutes of this one against Edmonton than they had a few weeks ago when they took on the Oilers, and they really didn't show up for the first 2 periods. So without Draisaitl and McDavid, they have to lean on some of their depth pieces like Nugent Hopkins and Hyman. Nugent Hopkins had a big game the other night. I think he had a hat trick. So they're going to be relying on a lot of other scores to get the job done. But this gives Dallas an opportunity to kick off the road trip with a bang here against Edmonton. And they take on a lot of good teams here over the next 4 or 5 games. When you look at Calgary, I know Seattle's having a down year, but they can always give you fits. Dallas is playing another home-and-home situation. Not really a home-and-home. I guess it's a road-and-road against Seattle. They did this last year where they played on a Saturday. I think they played on a Monday too, and this is the same time. They take on Seattle on Saturday and then Seattle next Monday. They have the Flames in between that with their tilt tonight against Edmonton. But if you look at the final 12 games here of the regular season, I think Dallas could maybe make things interesting against Winnipeg if they defeat the Jets in their final meeting on April 10th. So you have Edmonton tonight. You got Calgary on Thursday. Then it's Seattle twice. They're out of the playoffs. Nashville out of the playoffs. Penguins out of the playoffs. You got the Wild, who are limping a bit, but they're still in the conversation. Canucks out of the playoffs currently. And you have the Jets, Utah, Red Wings, Predators. That's a lot of contests and a lot of games on paper where you feel like Dallas will have the edge. Saying that, if Dallas plays like they did the previous 2 weeks before they played against Minnesota on Monday, it's going to be rather difficult. But those are a lot of winnable games, and they only trail Winnipeg now by what? 8 points, because the Jets won tonight. I'm recording this on Tuesday night. So the Jets won. Stars have 2 games in hand, and they can at least cut it to 6 points with a win here tonight against Edmonton and Calgary on Thursday. So you never know. It'll be difficult. It still looks like they're in a collision course with Colorado, but it'll be interesting down the stretch. I think it will be a bit too close for comfort for Winnipeg, although they defeated Washington tonight 3-2 in overtime. That was a big win for the Jets. But I think this is an important 4-game stretch. Dallas closed out their homestand on a high note. They got a little bit of everything in the game. We talked about this yesterday. They sort of changed their approach to how they went about their business, and I think sort of embraced a blue collar type of game. Just get in on the forecheck, just bang bodies, be physical, get really good goaltending, and the special teams pulled through as well. It was one of the more complete games we've seen for Dallas, and I know the first period was a bit of a snooze fest, but it was a snooze fest both ways, which was a good sign in itself, that the Stars weren't giving up a ton of grade A looks against Minnesota. So if they can continue to do that and stabilize themselves, again, I just want them playing good hockey going in to the Stanley Cup playoffs. If they limp in and just try to flip the switch, I think that's going to be really, really tough. And it looks like Tyler Seguin could be back in a few weeks. I think it would be great to try to get him involved before the end of the regular season, see what he has and see what type of player he's going to be coming off another surgery. And I would say the same with Miro Heiskanen, but he's not coming back until round 1, if he ever comes back. That's a very real possibility, and something that's disgusting, I should say, to even admit, but it is a real possibility that maybe Miro never comes back. But I'm still keeping the fingers crossed that he'll be ready to go for game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But what type of player is he going to be as well? So I hope Dallas takes advantage of an Edmonton team that does not have a few of their best players, but that gives other players opportunities to step up who are going to fill that void. And you may get a really, really good Edmonton team tonight. It's not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch. They still have a ton of good players. And as Dallas knows, they can beat you on any given night. So hopefully they show up, and I hope we can see a Stars team that improves and builds off what they did against Minnesota and their shutout win over the Wild by a final score of 3-0. So you got Edmonton, then you got the Flames on Thursday. That will be a tough game. That's a Calgary team that's just fighting for their lives to stay in the mix. Seattle twice, who I feel like is a team Dallas has had their number ever since they came into the league a few years ago. So they shouldn't have a ton of issues against a Kraken team. You are taking on an Edmonton team that's been off, I believe, since Saturday night. They haven't played since Saturday, so they have a few days rest. And of course, they didn't have to travel. So they're going to be well rested and ready for Dallas tonight. And I hope this is a game where the Stars can make a bit of a statement. And Mikko seems to be more comfortable in the lineup. I think he played one of his better games, and hopefully the chances that he gets, he starts bearing, because he's had some good looks and maybe just in a bit of a slump trying to find the back of the net. And if that gets going, man, I'm pretty naive and bullish on what Dallas can be, because their offense is too good, but they have to show up. And part of their offense stems from their ability to move the puck out of their own zone quickly. We've talked about this ad nauseum here, especially during the slump. It's been really hard for Dallas to move the puck out of their own zone cleanly with a few tape-to-tape passes, and that usually leads to their offense, especially off the rush. And I think really kind of goes hand in hand with how Dallas wants to play is their ability to break out of their own zone. And that's been a bit of a chore recently because they don't have the necessary personnel to all do that. But we've seen Matt Dumba in spurts this season have really good games. And I think he's been rather consistent here. I've liked what Liam Bichel has brought. He just seems to be steady. And I said this the other day, I'm not having to talk about him a lot. And I think that's a good sign, sort of what Joel Hanley was all about in Dallas for a few years. He just kind of steps in and plays his role. CC has been all right. And I think the Stars are trying to button down some of their issues. And maybe Monday was a step in the right direction. Maybe it's just a beat up Minnesota team that's not very good, but we have to take what we can get right now out of this Stars personnel. And if they can play, I think that way on most nights, they're going to be in good shape here in the final 12 games. And I ran through the schedule. Like, that's a lot of winnable games for the Stars. And they're trying to clinch home ice advantage. We continue to hear that. They're on the hunt for that. And if they take care of business, they should have no issues doing that. And you get game 7 at home and game 1 and 2 if you win, which they haven't done a lot under Pete DeBoer. Man, I would love for them to win game 1. If they win game 1, who knows? Maybe this is the Stars' year if they can win game 1 under Pete DeBoer. Alrighty, let's play Shooting Star next. I usually save this for the final segment, but I want to keep the state of play investigation sort of as your kicker tonight. So Shooting Star, let me know your pick below, and via the YouTube community tab, I'll share my answer in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. You've been in a spot where you need to hire right now, like yesterday. Pressure's on. Every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. They match your job requirements. You don't have to spend tons of time searching through candidates. Now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit on Indeed. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring all you need. It's Indeed. Alrighty, it's time for Shooting Star on this Wednesday, March 26th. The Dallas Stars taking on the Edmonton Oilers. By the way, I might have 3, 2, 1. Okay, Shooting Star time on today's episode of Locked On Stars. Wednesday, March 26th, the Dallas Stars taking on the Edmonton Oilers. By the way, I may have a late episode out tomorrow. I'm actually traveling in the middle of the night on Wednesday to get to El Paso on Thursday morning. So it's going to be a bit of a chaotic travel schedule, so bear with me in the next few days. But other than that, let's jump into my Shooting Star pick. I went with this player the other night in hopes he would hit his milestone, but it feels almost right that he gets it done tonight. And yes, I'm talking about the captain, Jamie Benn, who's sitting on 399 career games. And the reason I say I think it should happen tonight against the Oilers in Edmonton, out of all places, is just his numbers against the Oil in his career. I remember in the middle of the 2000s, even when the Stars weren't all that great, but from about 2014 to 2018, man, I have so many good memories of the Stars going up to Edmonton, staying up late, watching the games, and just destroying the Oilers. And a large part of that was Jamie Benn. 25 goals, 18 assists, a plus-minus of plus 13 in 45 games against the Oilers in his career. So I'm going with Jamie Benn to get his 400th career goal tonight against Edmonton. It feels right that he does it against the Oilers. And of course, he's a Western Canada boy. So I'm going to rock along with the captain tonight. Let me know your pick in the comments below, as well as voting via the YouTube community tab. I appreciate all of you that participate in that as well. But I think a lot of good choices tonight. Duchesne has been very, very good as of late. Wyatt Johnston, man, it feels like just a matter of time before Mikko Rantanen starts to pop in that top line. I can't wait for that to happen. I'm curious if Pete DeBoer sticks with some of the changes he made the other night. He had Rantanen and Marchment flip lines, and we got a taste of that for about the second half of the hockey game following a Rantanen penalty. And there was some moments. But he went back to the big boys at one point too. So maybe they're just going to allow that trio to sort of marinate. And I wouldn't push back against that. I just think it's a matter of time. Good players find a way to play with each other, but maybe you want to spread the love a little bit. I could see that as well. If you have Rantanen alongside Granlund and Duchesne and Marchment, I think is actually a really great partner for Rope and Robo. Just that hard sort of F1 forecheck kind of player that can win battles and get his nose into things and sort of grimy it up. Because if it's one knock you can have on that top line is maybe they don't have that. Although I've liked Robo's game here of late. He's getting to some of those board battles, those greasy areas, and trying to dig pucks free. And I think that's when Dallas is at their best too. That fourth line mentality, right? We've highlighted how successful they've been. And if everybody can sort of piggyback off what that fourth line has done, they'll be in good shape. I'm really curious to see if Bourque scratched again. Pete DeBoer does not like to change up lineups that win, and now he's won 2 in a row without Bourque in the lineup. I would rather see Bourque in. They obviously are not seeing enough from him, and we talked about this a lot around the trade deadline. They just needed Bourque or Stankoven, one of those two, to just start being productive. And he just has 22 points in 62 games. And look, he's a rookie. It may not click this season. Maybe it's next year where he breaks out, and maybe the expectations were just a bit too high for him. But they have not been able to find him a role, it feels like. But at the same time, I've liked his game of late, and a few of the goals he scored, like he scores a lot of those greasy goals on top of the crease. He gets to those areas, and I just feel like he could be a weapon come playoff time where you need guys to get to that area. And he's someone that just always seems to be sniffing around those areas. And we saw it against Colorado in part to their comeback in that one. He just was battling. He won a battle on the wall along with Jamie Benn. They work in front and they just jam away. And I feel like, he doesn't have a ton of goals this season, but a half dozen of them have come at the top of the crease in the blue paint, in the mixer, getting after loose pucks and just trying to bat some pills home. And I think he's grown in confidence. And I hope the healthy scratches don't pile up too much where it kills some of that, because I think he's playing well. And I know they want to get Blackwell in and some others like Dodonov, but I feel like Bourque's ceiling is higher than Blackwell, although I think he's played really good. And part of that's a problem too. If they're playing well, it's a tough decision for Pete to take them out of the lineup. But Bourque and his offensive upside, I think, should outweigh his decision of either playing Blackwell or him, or even Beck. And I know Beck is just an integral part of that fourth line. He PKs, he does a lot of other things, but I think Bourque can turn his way into that. Maybe the Star staff doesn't have that amount of trust yet, but hopefully it comes in due time. I just think he could be a really, really X factor kind of under the radar type of player for Dallas in your bottom 6 in the playoffs. I think that would not be a bad guy. You can be trotting out of your 4th hole and playing good minutes for you. So I would hope he gets back in the lineup soon, but a couple healthy scratches. Stars have won a couple of games, and we'll see if Pete DeBoer wants to change with that. So, yeah, that's a question I think a lot of Stars fans have on their minds about Mavrik Bouque and maybe why he's not getting a chance to play. They're sort of just working everybody in right now. And look, fourth line has been fantastic. I can see the argument about why you wouldn't change that up. It's looked really good. It's been actually probably the best line for Dallas over the last few weeks. So there we go. That was a bit of a tangent away from Shooting Star, but I wanted to dive into some of the lineup decisions here of late. And we haven't seen Bouque for a bit, so feels like we should touch on that. Okay, now a state of play investigation with 3 former Stars executives. Really interesting stuff. I have a few opinions. I don't want to dive too much into all the nitty gritty. I think some of it is boring to some of you. Maybe some of it's interesting, but it involves the Stars because they run youth hockey in Dallas. And as someone that grew up in there, grew up playing hockey in DFW, I want to talk about it a bit. So we're going to do that, and we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Trade Coffee. If you're like most Americans, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but you get tired of settling for grocery store brands that just aren't cutting it. That's why you can turn to Trade Coffee. And let me tell you, the coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. You can take a quiz in under a minute. They match you with the roast that's fresh, smells incredible, and tastes even better. That first bag can be a game changer. The subscription makes it easy. No more last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever is on the shelf. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. I debated starting today's podcast with this segment, but I wanted to get to more of the meat and potatoes tonight against the Oilers in the little 4-game road trip here for the Stars. But this story came out a few days ago, really intrigued me. It was from USA Today. Kenny Jacoby wrote this, and it was 3 Dallas Stars employees used their positions with the NHL team and atop prominent youth hockey nonprofit organizations to profit at thousands of families' expenses. And the employees were Damon Boddicker, Lucas Reed, Brad Buckland, organized dozens of Stars-run youth hockey tournaments that required out-of-town participants to book rooms for a minimum number of nights at select hotels. At the same time, those employees separately ran a company, Stay to Play LLC, that acted as a middleman between the Stars and the hotels, taking a cut of the revenue. The arrangement went on for about 4.5 years, and it goes into a ton of different details about the inner workings of some of these contracts and companies as well. I don't want to bore you with a ton of that, but there's a lot of conflicts of interest, to say the least. And I don't know if I have a huge, strong opinion on this matter as a whole, rather other than just it's really disappointing to see this. Very disappointing that there were some employees taking advantage of the sport, really, because it's a really expensive sport, hockey. As many of you know, it's hard to get into. I was blessed that had a family that had the resources to allow me to play hockey from when I was 3 years old all the way up through my childhood. Very, very fortunate. Not a lot of people have that opportunity. And I got to fall in love with the game from an early age. And I guess I maybe say this more as a PSA. Just be really careful about who you get involved with too in youth hockey. I was fortunate enough too. I feel like I had a lot of good people around me. I played travel hockey for, I think, a little more than a decade. My dad was right there with me. He was usually an assistant coach or someone that was sort of always involved. So I'm sure he was looking out for some of those curious suspects, because I know a lot of people that coach and work at Star Centers that I played with, and a lot of them are out saying they're not surprised. And I think that's pretty disgusting as well. And I think the Stars Metroplex, I think our demographic can sometimes get taken advantage of, because we're not the prototypical hockey town. And look, the Stars sort of run everything. They own all the rinks now. That wasn't always the case. They own most of them, but they own all of them now. And look, there are always going to be some bad apples. As I said, I think I had a lot of great coaches. There was one, not going to name any names, that, growing up now, hindsight, maybe wasn't the best role model, but he was a good hockey coach at the time. And when you're little, you don't worry about some of that stuff. But my parents and other parents certainly will. So you just got to be careful. And, my dad, someone that coached me growing up, and was around some of, different types of coaches and stuff. And there can be some shady stuff that happens. And there's a lady in here that spoke out about it. She is a parent of someone that plays an Oklahoma team, and about how they basically don't play till Friday. They have to book in at Thursday. Otherwise, you have to forfeit your games if you don't check in on Thursday and check out on Sunday. You may have to forfeit and waive your team fee, which can be a couple of grand. And also there was some members, those executives I mentioned, they were some Taha members, which is the Texas Association of Hockey, and their board members too. So there's just a lot of conflicts of interest. And basically there's a quote that says they hold you over the barrel here. So I think it's sort of disgusting what some of these people did, taking advantage of a sport that is already really expensive and tough to get into. And I've always preached this: Minnesota does it better than anybody. I know maybe some of you don't want to hear that, but the way they do their youth hockey is second to none. It's the best in the entire country. Look, Texas, it can't be that way. Unfortunately, there's just not enough. I don't know if there's enough demand for it to sort of turn into community based. Look, I'm not naive to that fact. Minnesota's a much different case study. But I guess I would just encourage you, if you do have young kids and stuff, be careful. Do your due diligence. Like I said, I was fortunate. I had a lot of good people around me that were, I think, good citizens for the most part. And look, it's expensive. You look at private lessons and all that. Like I've been around it. I knew people that shelled out a lot of money to do private lessons constantly. And I would just say, yeah, be careful. My dad used to just take me out to free skates, put out some cones, make me do drills. And I'm not Connor McDavid by any stretch, but I was pretty decent, I feel like, to boost the ego a bit, if I don't say so myself. So there's a lot of ways to get involved in this game. And travel hockey, especially nowadays, is just so expensive. And now the Stars run everything. They run all the leagues, including high school. They really always have. So just kind of nasty that this happened. And, I think it's a big topic. And look, the Stars are involved as much as they may not want to, or maybe it's not Jim Nill in those type, but still, it's part of the Stars. So I thought it was something to bring. Again, please go read it in its entirety. I know I didn't get to everything. There's just a whole lot. But you can find it on USA Today. Kenny Jacoby wrote it. And it's pretty interesting stuff. And it kind of sucks to hear too, if people that, I know are saying they're not surprised by a lot of that. So yeah, anyways, that's how we're going to close out today's episode of Locked On Stars on a Wednesday. Thank you as always for listening, taking the time out of your day. Appreciate all the love and support. Be sure to comment, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Never miss an episode of Locked On Stars. Stars Oilers tonight, and then they got Calgary tomorrow on Thursday. So we're going to get into that a bit too. As I said, may have a bit later of an episode out tomorrow since of the crazy travel. So stick with me. Have a great rest of your day, Stars fans. We'll see you tomorrow.